We're a group of Gen Xers learning about our ADHD and neurodiversity later in life. Join us as we discuss interesting clips we find online and how they relate to our own life experiences. Welcome to This Is How My Brain Works.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Is How My Brain Works. I'm Sarah and I'm going to be showing the clip today, and it's just Krista and I, so it's kind of like lady time, y'all. So,
Ladies' Day.
All right, here we go. I'm going to jump right in.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun. Voila. And here we go.
Hi, I am a autism, ADHD, OCD specialist, and I diagnose. I just want to tell you that your self-diagnosis is valid. Now, we get a little bit mindful because we don't want to misdiagnose and miss something else that could be treated with medication. However, most of the time, people get to the place of thinking that they're probably autistic after they've gotten 7,500 diagnoses and tried all the meds, and they still feel pretty bad. And most people don't go around saying or thinking, I'm autistic, when they're not. Like, just people who aren't autistic really just don't do that. And I can't speak for the whole, I know there's people out there who do it, but yeah, your self-diagnosis is valid as fuck. So start accommodating, find your people, and helping. I'm autistic when they're not.
And that's it.
Awesome.
So this is Adrienne Marcellis, and her account on Instagram is All for the Dopamine. And as she says in her little notes here, I'm going to just read it because it's kind of important. Always, always, always consult a professional. If you don't agree with the first one, get a second opinion. And if you have ADHD, consider assessing yourself for getting assessed or assessing yourself for autism. So that's
This is actually really right on for something that happened to me yesterday. So why did you bring this? Like, what's your thoughts? I mean, I know we've talked before about sort of self-diagnosing and where we are with that, but what are your thoughts on this?
kind of picking up from what we were talking about in our last session with always feeling like, so that kid that we brought in who was like, yeah, I'm ADHD, but I didn't get diagnosed till late. And as a kid through school, I felt alone, and my parents were on the team with the teacher. And like, as I was watching it last week, and it's something that has been in my head probably my whole life. What's wrong with me? Like, why don't I pick up the cues? Why do I annoy people so much? It's just this profound sadness for the kid that I was, who was, whether they meant to or not, ridiculed and pigeonholed in this other place from everyone else, this otherness. So what is my otherness? And I don't know that I've had a ton of experience being validated and cheered on for those differences that, while they are sometimes weaknesses, they're also strengths. Pattern recognition, sensitivity to light and sound. Well, I'm the one that's going to let everyone know, hey, it's too loud, or like the frog in the coal mine or the canary in the coal mine. So, just that. And honestly, I don't know that ADHD is the right diagnosis for me. I don't know that autism is either. When I kind of go around and ask, like I asked all my family members in the last couple of weeks, I was like, so could I be autistic? Do you think I'm autistic? And they were like, no, not at all. And I was like, so maybe I'm not, but I also, the sensitivity to tags in my clothes as a kid, the extreme sensitivity to light and noise.
I think
I'm masking, but I don't know what I'm masking.
Well, I think the thing that's really, first of all, I have some thoughts about masking that I'd love to share. I think that he told me the other day I'm neurospicy, because he was just sort of like, Kate and I had this conversation, and actually he got very angry with me. I am not autistic. And I was like, well, kiddo, you are wholly on the spectrum. I mean, he is. I mean, like he is one of those kiddos that you are going to, if you were to meet him, you go, that kid's on spectrum. I mean, there's just like, he has been identified by people in a museum or elsewhere, just sort of like, hey, you on like from other kids
I
who are
remember
on
that.
spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is not a kid who we're like, and he has been evaluated. He actually did not come. They told us that we could evaluate further for autism, but really what it was for him was sensory integration disorder, with and he's an introvert and has some anxiety. So but very opposed to being put in the autism camp for some reason, although and I think it's because, the things that you're sort of like the things you're saying, he can be outgoing, eye contact is not comfortable, but not really an issue. Like there are things that people think of as classically autistic that do not match me, my kid, my dad, but which is why this umbrella was sort of created, I think, and like,
Spicy.
yeah, so neurospicy is what Cade's going with right now, and I'm definitely neurospicy. And and I was thinking a lot about masking lately, and just like everything, the generations who are coming up behind us. There was a commercial, there was like one of those fake commercials on SNL, it was years ago, about Barbie, about President Barbie. Do you remember that sketch?
No, I don't know if I saw it.
It was a sketch where they come out and
I
they're
would
like,
remember a Barbie sketch.
it's President Barbie. And then the girls were like, the little girls weren't playing with President Barbie. And the announcer's like, why aren't you playing with President Barbie? And they're like, I mean, I can like lots of things. I like playing with Legos. And it was this whole idea of they don't have to play with President Barbie because we have made so much progress. They can like all of the things. It doesn't take Barbie to tell them that they can like it, and they want to like other things. And and it was sort of this like joke around the progress we've made, that they don't have to extend it through Barbie in order to be whole. And so I guess with masking, I also sort of, we've got these generations coming up who have this benefit of diagnosis and talking and openness and communication, like all of the transparency, all of these things. And so I do think that there's this idea of like, I don't have to mask. I don't want to. I don't have to mask. But masking is, we all mask. You don't have to be neurodiverse to mask. When we look at someone who cuts you off, the older lady who accidentally cuts you off in front of you, to get her 3 items at the checkout stand, and you go, oh, it's okay, really, you go ahead. That's masking. My head might be, I'm busy too, lady. I was waiting here. You just cut me off. But my sense of this woman is older, she's my elder, I respect her, she clearly has someplace to go, and I need to just sort of like take the beat and be kind, that's masking. So I also want to be very careful that we're not so like, take it all off, guys. Everybody be themselves, that we're just not kind to one another, and then we're not respecting some sort of social cues and mores that are really important for us to live in a society that works together. And a lot of autism education goes because my mother, that's what my mother does, goes towards how do you function in a society.
It's like integration, right?
Yeah. It was sort of like, how do you catch the clues? How do you at least say thank you? Like, my oldest will not say goodbye, hello, or goodbye unless you do it first. And it's not because he's a jerk, although it can seem like it. It literally doesn't occur to him. And so you have to say, hey, bud, hi.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
Or if he answers the phone and there's silence, you're hello? Are you hello?
Oh my God, my
Which I
goodness.
think is a teenager thing maybe as well.
Yeah,
But
I don't know what that's about.
But it's just sort of like, you're so, but I think the thing is, when you talk about the neurospiciness, is sometimes it's like, not with everybody, but obviously that stuff, you don't like. I knew I was different. I used to describe myself as, I still do actually. I still tell people I am like a fungus. You will learn to love me, but you may not like me at first. And it takes a while. And I used to know that about myself. I used to be like, I'm not the person who's going to go in the room and have friends. It takes a while. Like it just takes a while to get to know me. It takes a while for me to open up. It takes a while for them to, sometimes my directness comes out in ways that can be hurtful and I may not even know. And like it all, but all of that stuff, contributes to that. But I will have to say the one thing that I share with my kid, and it's not that it's not that I don't care about how people think about me, because like we've talked about how sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to the things that will take up rent in my head, really. But overall, I mean, I was always that kid where someone was like, I don't like you, let's fight. I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't care if you like me. Like those things just were not. I feel like I've gone through life in some ways in like this bubble of and yeah, and I don't know if it's protection or narcissism. Like sometimes I wonder, I'm like, I don't think I'm narcissistic, but it's sort of like I just have blinders to some of the cruelty. And I know Cade has that too. Yeah.
Yeah. What you're describing, it sounds like my mom.
Oh, interesting.
Like, and my sister actually said, I wonder if our mom is autistic. And that's what's going on for her, because when you were like, I don't care what people think, holy Lord in heaven, she is that times a million. Like, in fact, for her, the way she describes it is how you've kind of said that how you describe some of the coming up generation that doesn't mask. I don't have to, but there's a harm to that. And there's this kind of flippant, it's one thing to not intend to hurt someone's feelings because you don't notice or you don't care. It's quite another, once they've said that their feelings are hurt or that they don't like your behavior, to revel in the fact that I don't need to change my behavior, just take it or leave it, F off. And that's kind of how my mom has always been. Although,
Interesting.
that is not how I am.
Yeah,
and
no, me either.
When people don't like me, I feel it intensely. It's overwhelming. They can't hide it from me. I am picking up all of the clues. Like, even if they're being perfectly kind and including me, I can tell that they don't, or I think that they don't like me.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people out there that I've confronted and said, hey, and their response is, no, I totally like you. And I still don't believe them.
What do you do? You just answered that in response to that, because I think I might care on some level. Like I might go, oh, that person doesn't like me. But I don't also then turn around and go like, I'm going to make it my mission for that. I just sort of, we're just going to avoid that.
I always assume that when they don't like me, it's that I've done something wrong and I need to change. That's the part that's so hard for me. And that just could be trauma and not related at all to any of this other stuff.
Yeah, no, I think it was like that. I totally forgot to start time, by the way. So we just got to figure it out. I
can tell.
I'm good. I think, sorry, now I just lost my train of thought because of menopause. Yeah.
I'll blame that too. It'll come back to you. Just breathe. Right? I mean,
oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't. I know what I was gonna say. It came back. Look, it came back.
I knew it would.
I think I was a lot more sensitive about that stuff until I hit my mid-40s. And then in my mid-40s, I really got clear with I'm cooked. There is no change. There's no massive. I mean, there's definitely little bits of change and I'll grow and learn and whatever. But in terms of me like striving to like really hear every cue or respond or care, or like we're beyond that level of growth. And so I really got into that space of trying to find ways to support the person I am in the world, as opposed to trying to change to fit the world. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not necessarily doing that anymore. Trying to understand people don't like me.
I don't see you as that.
Yeah. But I will like so a good example, I was at the dog park and I have a friend there who is neurodivergent, and I did not know this, are very, very sensitive to touch. And so when they were going to leave, I kind of tapped their knee, and not leave, but like it was the wind up to leave. So I tapped their knee or touched them in some way. And it was like a switch had flipped. That person had difficulty making eye contact with me for probably several months.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I just recognized that I had done it. I knew that this was not the person that I could confront it head on and be like, hey, yesterday when I touched your knee, I was wrong. It would have made it worse, because I could tell they would then be super self-conscious, or I was worried that they would be super
Yeah.
self-conscious that I was paying that much attention to them in the first place. So I just let the space happen, and then slowly but surely they've come back around, and it's been about a year since that happened. And the last time I saw them, I said, hey, I'm so glad that we can be close, and I promise I won't, I want to hug you, but I promise I won't touch you. And I saw the flicker of them remember, like it was clear it had absolutely bothered the crap out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm a hugger, and it's hard. I actually have to stop myself because I want to hug people or touch them or express it. And
So my oldest, you cannot touch around the neck. Nothing.
yeah, you were saying that.
Nothing. Well, and the thing that's crazy is about it is how much, because and I say crazy not because they're crazy,
Hard to
but crazy
understand.
because no, I say crazy because I just didn't know these things were possible before having this child in my life, right? Like I would get questioned of whether we were hurting him, because people would go to, like, the teacher would go up and
Oh yeah.
try to like touch him, and he would be like, as if he'd been abused. I mean, literally, like the jump, and the stress, and it has every sign that I don't know, locked him to a wall at some point in my life, which has never occurred. That's where he is incredibly sensitive. And if you didn't know, and you don't know what's going on there, you would wonder. You would totally wonder, because it's a very, still to this day, a very dramatic, what I would consider a dramatic reaction.
Can you ask or warn before touching there? Can he acclimatize to it almost, or no? Have you?
Yeah, it's so funny. We had a conversation about love languages, which I know is its own thing. And he would say one of his love languages is physical touch. Like he likes to hold hands. He likes to, ever since one of his sensory things is like to give a reset. We have this thing. I scratch his one arm, other arm back, and it's like a brain reset for him. And it is not a gentle scratch. It is not like a break the skin scratch, but it is on his fair skin. He's red. It is a definitely
like a rose garden, when you do the rose garden on the skin.
Yeah, and he jokes that someday I'm going to have to teach a partner of his how to like have the proper pressure to be able to take over for me. But yeah, that's a reset for him. So, and very cuddly kid, like, but there's something about this area that is a no-go. Yeah, feet, he's
Where I
fine
want
with.
my shoulders rubbed, please rub my shoulders, and you have 45 minutes to stop.
Yeah, no, it just totally like cannot. And I think it's one of the reasons why they grew their hair out so long. So that, because hair, is that it covers that very sensitive space. And if you try to, because even if I try to move hair like away, he'll be like it's just
too much.
So I do think that's like, it's like a blanket over that really sensitive area of their body.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, with my mom and her, so for me, I care that other people don't like me. And for me it's twofold. It's both that, like, I want them to be happy. So I really don't like that something I'm doing is uncomfortable or disruptive to them. And then two, that like I want to be included. And when you're not liked, you're not included.
Yeah.
So that's my issue. But with my mom, when she would talk, she'd tell stories about being in school and people not liking her and her just like being like, whatever, something's wrong with you that you don't like me. I'm great. And I never believed her. And I still don't believe her. When she says it, it actually
Yeah.
is masking the harm of being different and having been excluded and having to make her own
Yeah.
way. If you're not going to like me, I don't need you anyway, is more how it feels with her.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
again, that could just be me projecting. And I've missed this my whole life that, in fact, why has it been so hard? Because I was raised by someone who was incapable of the sort of nurturing that I needed.
It's interesting because when I think about that, just sort of in the comparison with your mom, it's like, I don't want to say it didn't hurt my feelings if I wasn't included, because I certainly was not included on certain things in high school, especially like I did not drink. I was I was like the smarty smartster that nobody like I was the one who was gonna, I always perceived that I was looking down on them for doing the things, which actually I never did. It's just my face.
Right.
But but so there were definitely things I wasn't included in. And I will have to say, I think I've always had a very small circle of very dear friends that when they do leave and go off and do things with others, sometimes it was hurtful because it was like, I only have a couple of you, and if we're not gonna be friends anymore, then I really have nothing to do. But I was also, as you know, I love my own mind palace. So I was also a person who, if you left me at home alone in a room with a book for a weekend, everyone, the whole world could have been doing at a carnival and I wouldn't have given a shit. So I had that side of it. Now I was also a theater kid though, and I very active and went to a school that our department was highly acclaimed in the state, and so I don't know, I feel like I always, there's a sense when you're a theater kid that you're with, sometimes that you're sort of with the free thinkers, the weirdos, the people who are willing to accept, whoever you are, because we're all
Avant-garde.
creative and doing things. And so I always had them, and I was always busy. I was always in rehearsals and doing things. So I think some of that other stuff that you do, the partying or the this or the that, just didn't, I never felt like I missed out. But I also know it wasn't like everyone's like, oh my gosh, homecoming is coming up. Who's going to be the queen? It's going to be, no, never, never.
Yeah. I don't know that I was excluded as much as I'm sounding like I was. For me, that feeling of not belonging really sits at home.
Oh, interesting.
Not with, in fact, with my friends and all of that, despite being weird. There's definitely people who were like, yeah, no, she's not for me. But through elementary school, like even preschool, I had people that were my best friends and I was their best friend. And I knew that my friends loved me. The same thing with elementary school. Like there was 4 of us and a few others that kind of came in and out of our group. But we literally, I mean, in 4th grade, and I think it was Janet Solid, rest in peace, Janet, who got us helped, but we created in 4th grade, we created a cheerleading squad for our kickball team because the boys could be on the kickball team and they would play intra-city games. So they would get in buses and go places. And the only girl who was quote unquote good enough to be on the kickball team was Liz. So Lizzie basically was like, wait a minute, y'all, because we were so jealous. Every time she'd get to go off and go travel with the team, and we'd be like, we want to go too. She's like, hey, y'all, there are schools that have cheerleaders and for their team. And so we were like, well, let's do it. So I don't know what teacher we went to, but they let us run with it. I can remember going to Joann Fabrics or the fabric store with my friends after school and using our allowances to buy the pattern so that our mothers or we could make our skirts. I can remember saving up our allowances to get the pom-poms. And I can remember
gosh.
when you get a pom-pom, they're straight. So like you have to scrunch them up, and we sat together and made our pom-poms. Then we had to come up with routines and
Yeah.
cheers for, and so we came up with cheers and had a whole, I mean, and now
Awesome.
there's a picture of us that I have. It's one of my favorite pictures. It's a Polaroid of us doing a pyramid
Oh
because
my
we,
gosh, that's
we
awesome.
were serious. There were no teachers involved. We just did it ourselves.
That's
And,
awesome.
so the same thing in middle school. I did theater like you. So I had tons of friends, and I often hung out with the kids older than me and
Me
younger
too.
than me. Like I didn't always hang out with my grade.
Yeah.
And then in high school, same thing. I don't know that I was popular. I think I probably wasn't, but I was friends with the popular people, and like true friends.
Yeah.
Like they would consider me their best friend.
Oh, I think I always felt like it was like, you've got circles of popularity, and I wasn't in the main circle, but I was not, we were all good. Or as my youngest would say, there was no beef. Like everybody was good. It wasn't like it wasn't bad in that sense. Were your parents still together? Like, or did your parents separate or anything like that? No, still together?
They separated when I was 6, but I mean, the way my sister has characterized it, that their relationship was super fun, life of the party, and then I was born and ruined everything, and all the fighting started. I'm sure that's not how it went down, but I didn't sleep well. I had lots of allergies and eczema. Like I mean, I snored like an old man. You could hear me from like as a 2-month-old. You could hear me, with all the doors closed downstairs in the way, I struggled a lot. And I
Mm.
was probably not an easy kid. I was allergic to wheat, chocolate, milk, and a lot of other cats, pollen, chemicals, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And I, in fact, many years in elementary school, there would have to be the write-off to allow me to go to the next grade because I'd missed so much school that because I was sick. I
Mm.
was sick probably once a month my entire childhood. Um, and then my parents, when I was little, moved from Louisiana to San Francisco. So their support network was gone. And the cost
Right.
of living in San Francisco was so high. And then they were at each other's throats. And my dad was doing his residency. So as a doctor, he had no time. And my mom was
Yeah.
working a ton. And it just, I think, was more than they could handle. And
Yeah.
I fell through the cracks. I was difficult. I also had a crazy sleep schedule where I would wake up like all through. I mean,
Yeah,
at least
you had like the Victorian sleep schedule, right?
I don't know. It's like I went to bed I would like to go to bed around 6 and wake up at like 4 was my natural clock.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, the Victorians do back in the Victorian era, did 2 sleeps. So you
That's
go,
what I do now.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, not
So,
really, but as a kid, I was very, very,
yeah,
and we are out
interesting.
of time having just talked
Okay.
our ear off about my sleep schedule as a kid. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm bored myself. But yeah, I think the takeaway here is let's not be afraid to search out diagnoses. The beauty of a diagnosis is, for me, it's like a hat. I can put it on, but guess what? I can take it off if the symptoms don't seem to fit that hat and it's not serving me. I think that's the whole point of the diagnosis
Well,
is to
I think the takeaway that I took too is like that we know, like when in one of the other episodes when we talked about how people are diagnosed and how it's actually fairly subjective in many ways of just having observation and lots of different people noticing the same things and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm with myself all the time, turns out. So,
miracle.
so miracle. So if I'm having an inkling that that something is going on, then I should listen to that. And I think what further complicates that, which we didn't get to talk about, and hopefully we can spend a whole episode on, is the differences. Like I think I've said it last time, like when we've been talking about these diagnoses and self and whatever, And I've gone like, maybe I'm on spectrum, maybe I've got ADHD. I don't know what's going on. I think for those of us who are women, we've been comparing ourselves to the male versions of what it looks like. And they're finding out more and more and more that it doesn't look the same for us. So we've been actually using false data to diagnose even ourselves. So
Yeah, and I think that's really what you just hit on something. Not only are all of these diagnoses kind of male templated diagnoses, so is normalcy.
Totally. Boom.
Mic drop. We're a minute early, but I think we might have just wrapped. I encourage all of you to check out Adrienne Marcellis and her account. And thanks for joining us today.
If you like this episode of This Is How My Brain Works, please like, subscribe, and share. For more info on today's clip, the hosts, and our podcast, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening.